in my daily life, I often find myself at odds with people who dismiss my concerns about racism as merely being oversensitive or race baiting. I've even called a racist twice this year already, and however, this is by people with less than basic education, and as much as I love and respect everybody, they don't bother me, okay? Now, these moments, they're brief, but they're emblematic of a deeper struggle of being challenged unfairly every time I attempt to bring attention to the persistent issue of racial discrimination. I don't experience it that much at all, to be honest. It's still there. You know, you get the glances and just the way that people actually treat you. Often, more than not, in Spain, where I am, it's just that, you know, like, oh, there's an African guy. They assume I'm African because the Africans are here. It's not that bad. I'm talking about in England. Do you know what I mean? And English should be ashamed of itself. It's a forward-moving, you know, country, and it's a wealthy country, and it's a country that has everything at its disposal. And yet, the people that want to educate themselves to racism, sexism, and all the others. But I'm not talking about those. Let's just keep it pure today. I'm fed up with having to add the others so people really understand or feel included. And it's as if my kind of experiences aren't real, and they're met with skepticism and even derision, and it often leaves me feeling isolated, or has done, and embattled. Now imagine, for instance, you're sitting in a professional setting where the topic of race arises, perhaps during a meeting at work, or, you know, even on a blooming meeting about diversity and inclusion, and then I put my hand up and, you know, I'm a little frustrated, so I share an anecdote about a colleague's unspoken microaggression, or the subtle biases that permeate the workplace. But instead of empathy or understanding, I'm met with blank stares, dismissive laughter, in more instances than you can imagine. Or worse, accusations of being too sensitive or divisive. And these responses only invalidate my experiences and make me feel as if people just don't want to listen rather than they don't want to understand. And it also reinforces a cycle where my voice is, consistently silenced. And this happens all the time. And this pattern extends beyond the workplace into many social settings. Conversations about race are avoided altogether. They're treated as taboo subjects that should be kept, at bay and only on particular occasions. And when I bring up these issues, it's as if I'm the one introducing discord, while those around me remain passive observers, either indifferent or complicit in the silence. And the burden of proof is placed upon me. Proof that racism exists, proof that it affects individuals differently, proof that it can't simply be wished away. And it shouldn't be my position. And moreover, societal structures contribute to these challenges. The prevalence of colour blindness, a notion that suggests treating everyone equally without acknowledging race, creates an environment where overt racism is minimised or denied altogether. In this context, my experiences are not only dismissed, but also deemed unnecessary, as the very existence of racism is questioned. And it's a cycle that perpetuates a lack of acknowledgement and a failure to address the root causes of systemic inequality. And the psychological toll of these challenges, they can't be overstated. Each time I'm met with disbelief or dismissal, a part of me feels shattered, as if my very identity and experiences are being questioned, and it's exhausting to continuously defend what I believe to be true, only to be met with resistance. And an example here is, every time you mention football, someone says, oh yeah, and then they'll mention something about football. And it's okay to bring it up at any, a wedding, bar mitzvah, funeral, it's okay to bring that up about that goal that was scored, or an opinion about what's going on in football. And then suddenly someone says something about race, and then you want to add to that, and people are, it's a bit comfortable, we can talk about anything else, but we can't bring this up. And it creates a sense of isolation. I haven't felt it for the longest time, I've got to admit. For the 8 years I've lived in Spain, I haven't experienced it. Once I was at a table and some guys and their dad, it was almost like, and I've seen this before, and this is going on a slight tangent, they're a little gang. Like the dad's raised his sons to be like him, to be tough and to not like that type. And you can just feel it, because it's experiences that I've had in the past which have led to fights, not that I've started, or, aggression where it's been close escapes, where I've had to leave, or, ended up having to hurt somebody. And it was just there, and they kept looking over, and, so I just thought to myself, I ain't putting up with this. I got my phone out, and I was laughing with wifey number one, and it pissed them off. They were seething. And it was just that there were many people about. There were people, and they would have murdered me, cut my throat and hit me in the bushes if they had a chance. But, I I was strong enough not to let that happen. So when it does happen, as I said, it creates a sense of isolation, and it's a feeling that my truth doesn't matter unless it aligns with the status quo. Fall in line, don't talk about that, or don't talk about it at that level. Now, James Baldwin, one of my favourite people, he once said, I am not concerned with conforming to society. I have too much respect for myself and my mission in life. And that's powerful. I thought that. There's times when I just don't care. People go, God, you're bold, you're brave, you're so confident. I said, well, not really. I've got the shyness like everyone else, and I'm not really that confident and so on, but my mission in life is to do as I do. I'm not talking about only racism here, about me just walking down the road, singing, dancing, being who I want, roller skating, talking to strangers. And, I don't need to conform to society. I want to do what I want to do. So I do that. And, maybe it's seen as confidence and so on, or maybe even seen as not caring, as some people have said. And James Baldwin's statement, that sentiment resonates deeply within me. It really, really does. So my experience is they're vital to my identity, and dismissing them would undermine my existence. Now, the burden of proof isn't mine alone. It's a societal responsibility to acknowledge and address all of these realities facing the marginalised communities. Perhaps the root of these challenges lies in a broader discomfort with the uncomfortable truths that racial discussions entail, and that's for people to have to take on, to be uncomfortable, because we've got so used to being comfortable all the time that we're not willing to take these things on. It's easier for many to remain silent, to avoid grappling with all these complexities of systemic racism, rather than to engage in meaningful conversations that lead to change. And this avoidance only serves to perpetuate the very issues that we claim to want to resolve. Now, the persistent challenge I face when discussing racism isn't merely a personal frustration, but a societal one. It requires a collective effort from all of us to recognise and address these issues without the weight of proof resting solely on those who experience them daily. And only by embracing empathy and understanding can we move towards a more equitable and just society where every voice matters and every truth is heard. I am the OBG.